It's a beautiful sunny afternoon, but after the storms of yesterday, it's now at about 82% humidity. So while it's not hot, it's humid. So join me with a tasty beverage of your choice close to hand while we talk about why Hoyas are easy. And before we get underway today, I'd like to take this opportunity to send out a special thanks to Maggie and to Trees of Edgewater, who both bought me coffees this past week. Your support for my channel goes a long way in helping keep me and Hoya and Dischidia, their relatives, technology and infrastructure, and all the things that go into making these videos possible. So thank you both very much for your support. And checking in on another little project some of you have asked about. A couple weeks ago, I got a plant that had been started as tissue culture, and I potted it up and put it in this little mason jar as sort of a greenhouse, and it hasn't died. And right there's a new leaf coming in. So I'm very pleased about that. So I'm going to put it back in its little jar because it's doing fine right now. And there we go. I've been opening the jar every day, letting fresh air in, and keeping it in this nice humid environment. Someone suggested I should have done this upside down and put the pot on top of this, but then I figured as I was putting the jar on it, it would knock it over, and because I'm graceful that way. This way, the cup can't fall too far. So it's preventative against my lack of coordination, but it's still doing okay. I'm taking that new leaf as a really good sign. And so we're going to continue. But this has been really cool. This was my Anthurium Queen of Hearts from tissue culture. And despite the whole cachet and mystique about Hoyas being mysterious and bizarre, they aren't. Of course, it wasn't always that way for me. When I first started out, I couldn't have grown a little plant like this Hoya mamasa, which is doing really well right now. It's put out a whole bunch of new growth. But for me at first, they were mysterious and difficult, and I clearly killed at least the first 5 or 6 Hoyas I ever purchased, mainly because I followed the instructions I found on the internet when I Googled how to care for Hoyas. A lot of that misinformation has been corrected, but it led me down the wrong path and gave me some assumptions that I shouldn't have started with. So yeah, that's kind of why we're having this discussion. If you're new to Hoyas or you're thinking about exploring the genus or their relatives, Dischidia and Oreospart and Papahoya, then here's some observations I've made, things I've learned over the years. But the one basic thing is Hoyas are easy. I grow almost probably more than 175 different species / varieties of Hoyas, and they're not tough at all. You can do this. And another Hoya that's been fun for me has been my Hoya acicularis. I really like the long, slender leaves, and this one has been easy. And it's one of those Hoyas where when people tell you that all Hoyas look alike, well, no, they don't. And this one has been going great guns this summer, so I'm really pleased about Hoya acicularis. Now, where are Hoyas from? The native range of Hoya, and I'm going to drop in a map here, run from Jammu and Kashmir, north of India and Pakistan, down through the subcontinent, through Southeast Asia, southern China and Japan in the north, to Queensland, Australia in the south, and all the way out to Samoa in the east. So they have a very, very broad native range. They don't all grow in all those places, but that's where you'll find Hoyas throughout the world. So what's that mean? I mean, it's, okay, you saw the map, you see where they grow. What's that mean? Moisture. Moisture and or humidity. That's what it means. Hoyas are not succulents with a capital S. They can be succulent with a lowercase s as an adjective, but they are not succulents. They do not grow in the desert. They do not like to dry out. So treating them like that is going to be a recipe for disaster. They're not going to grow as well for you as they possibly could. It means they like it warm. Now, that doesn't mean that they will only grow if your temperatures are 85 or 90 degrees or more year-round. That's not the case at all. But they're not going to want to drop below 60 degrees Fahrenheit, which is, let me check, and 60 degrees Fahrenheit is 15.5 degrees Celsius. So don't let them get cooler than that. They won't be happy. They may not die, but they're not going to be happy living there long term. 3, what it means is bright light. Now, that doesn't mean that they need hours of sunshine every day. They're understory plants for the most part. They'll climb up a tree as far as they can until they do get direct sunlight. But for the most part, their leaves and vines and everything else grow in shaded areas. Now, if you've walked out in your own backyards or in a city park or something like that, you'll notice that even in the shade, it's still fairly bright. It's usually brighter in the shade outside than it is anywhere inside your house, typically. So if you can provide steady moisture and or humidity, warmth, like normal house temperatures, and decent bright light, bright and direct light, you can grow Hoyas. They're not difficult. They're easy to do. Another fun one from my collection is my Hoya VL9, particularly because it's currently in bloom. And I'll try and put some close-up of those blooms, but the leaves are just amazing. Very, very pretty. Just a favorite of mine. I like the color, I like the splash, the whole bit. So yeah, so that's VL9. Now, what you don't need to grow Hoyas. You don't need an IKEA cabinet or any kind of cabinet. You don't need a grow tent. You don't need a special humidifier, and you don't really need grow lights. Now, are those things helpful? Yes, they are. I have a humidifier that I run in the plant room in the winter because the humidity in my house can drop down to 25 and 30%. It's not great for the plants. It's not great for me either. Do I have grow lights? Yes, I do, but I'm finding that I don't need the grow lights as much as I once thought I did. That's fine when you've got 2 feet or 60 centimeters above your plant, a grow light above your plant. But as the plants grow and get taller, they get a little too close. They start sun stressing in ways I don't particularly like, and they can burn. So yeah, you don't need any of those things. I don't have a grow tent, and I don't have a single cabinet or special enclosure for any of my Hoyas. All of my Hoyas, every one that I grow, grows in ambient household conditions. Now, I live in southern New England in the United States, in Rhode Island. My average year-round humidity here is around 60%, but that's an average for the year. It can get much drier in the winter, and well, you can't get much more humid than it is today, but it can get more humid. I get a decent amount of light, but in terms of like having special enclosures or anything else, it's just not necessary. I don't use them. I have Hoyas growing in west-facing windows, in southern windows, in eastern windows. They do well almost anywhere. What you need to do is watch and see where your Hoyas like to be. But you don't need any special equipment to grow Hoyas in your home. This little beast here is my Hoya obovata. Whoops, grabbing on the stuff over there, and it's doing really, really well. Yeah, I didn't think this plant was going to turn into anything, and then I found a spot it likes and conditions it likes, and now it's doing just great. So let me carefully put this down. It's really heavy too. So the question hopefully you're asking is, if I don't need any of those things, what do I need? And there's one thing, the one secret to growing Hoyas successfully in your home without any of that other stuff. The one thing you need is an open mind. You might have to set aside some of your preconceptions about how to grow Hoyas and start gathering the information you need about what they actually like and want and what works successfully. For a long time, I pushed back on a lot of the things I'm going to tell you. I didn't need that. I didn't want to do that. I wasn't going to go there. I could do it fine. And, it just didn't work terribly well. So an open mind is going to be the one thing that's going to help you be successful in growing Hoyas. Now, you don't have to do any of the things I'm going to suggest. You don't have to. You can do as you please. You do you. But as I said, I grow over 175 different varieties of Hoyas very, very well with no trouble whatsoever. So if I can do it because I have no special skills, I'm not a botanist, I'm not a horticulturalist, my degree is not in biology. If I can do it, you can too, as long as you keep an open mind. This one is my little Hoya Verstechi. I'm trying to pronounce the Dutch correctly. And most people usually let this trail, but I don't have room for that. So I'm sending it up. And once this little puppy got settled, love those leaves. These are really pubescent on the back, slightly pubescent on the front, but really pubescent on the back, the same way a globulosa would be. Nice little undulate edge too. It's kind of like cool. So yeah, this is Hoya Verstechi. Now, what I have learned is what Hoyas don't want. And the top of the list is soil. Any kind of soil. Potting soil, cactus soil, cocoa peat, none of it. Hoyas are epiphytes, which means they do not grow in soil naturally. Most of their roots are growing on the sides of things, in nooks and crannies of trees, so they didn't evolve to handle what happens in soil. Soil typically tends to pack and become too dense. It's not airy enough, and it suffocates the roots. They don't like it. So any mix that you have that's using any soil, potting soil, cocoa peat, cactus soil, any of that stuff is not the best growing medium for Hoyas. You may get a Hoya that comes in cocoa peat and perlite or something like that. That soil is good for the grower. It's not necessarily good for you. That's great, or it can be great for rooting cuttings, but it's not really good for the long-term growth of the plant. So I get rid of the soil completely. I don't use any soil in any of my Hoya growing setups, not one. I'm using less and less soil for everything else too, but that's a different story with my Hoyas. I don't use any soil whatsoever. Even in my organic mix, none. The other thing Hoyas don't want is to dry out. And the articles used to say, well, don't water them until the top 2 inches of the soil is bone dry. They like to go dry and then get wet, go dry and get wet. No, they don't. Don't do that. Number one, as we said, they didn't evolve to grow in soil. And the wet and dry cycle back and forth is a leading contributor to root rot. That's how you'll damage your roots. Hoya roots did not evolve to take care of and take advantage of those circumstances, that situation, so they don't want it, and you shouldn't give it to them. And those are the two things that Hoyas don't want. They don't want any kind of soil, and they don't want to dry out. Now, I know everybody's got a mother or an aunt or somebody who's grown a Hoya in soil for 40 years. Yeah, okay, great. I'm really happy about that. It doesn't mean that that person should repot that plant. What it means is that person, that plant have worked out a relationship where the grower knows how much moisture that plant needs and keeps it at conditions that it can handle. But it's not the best situation for starting out. So don't do those two things. This one is my little Hoya NS12 323. And another example of how all Hoyas don't look alike. Cute little plant, great little leaves, little lines in them, very cool. Yeah, one to keep your eye out for. So now let's talk about what Hoyas do want. First up, moisture. They want access to moisture, and that can be in a couple different forms. It can be humidity, super high humidity, because some of the places these plants are from are really, really humid, or a steady supply to their roots. Steady, regular. So that's why I recommend self-watering pots. Self-watering pots were a game changer for me. I was a big fan of terracotta. I tried terracotta. Actually, I tried growing a Hoya bella in terracotta and cactus soil. Don't do that. No. The plant is still with me, but only because I bailed on that approach. So, self-watering pots come in generally two styles. There's a style with an inner pot and an outer pot and a wick. And the wick pulls moisture up into the substrate. There's also self-watering pots that have what I refer to as a platform or a table. So that's the bottom of the inner pot. They still have an inner and an outer pot. This is the bottom of the inner pot. And there are holes and slots in the side of these that allow water to flow into the substrate that falls into them from above. I'm finding I like these more and more. I appreciate this gauge. The gauge typically, when it's halfway up its markings, will reach to the bottom, just to the bottom of this platform. If you fill it up beyond that, it will be up into the substrate itself, the main body of the substrate. I tend not to do that. But the way to check for sure is assemble your pot, pour water into it until you can see it at the bottom of the table, and then look at where the float is here. If you're using this style, I've used this kind for many, many years. I still like them. I'm leaning more now toward finding ones that have some kind of window on the side so I can see how much moisture is in there. But either one of these in whatever size work really, really well. Don't pay a lot of money for them. I've seen pots like this, of this size, that are like $40 and $50 US. I don't think they do any better a job than, less expensive ones. So yeah, don't spend a lot of money for them. But for me, self-watering pots were an absolute game changer. The next thing is, so if you're not going to use soil, what do you use? And you use an airy substrate. Now that can mean an inorganic substrate like leca or pon or pumice, or it can mean an organic substrate such as cocoa husk chunks and pumice and fine bark, long fiber sphagnum. You can put leca in there as well, anything like that. Or a commercial mix, but not any commercial mix that has soil in it. You want to steer away from soil. What you want is a substrate that's airy. So simply taking some potting soil or cocoa husk, potting soil or cactus soil and adding cocoa husk chunks to one of those or bark to one of those is not making an airy soil or is not making an airy substrate. The soil is still there. It's still compacting. It's still holding too much moisture and not enough air. You want the substrate to be airy. So whatever kind of self-watering pot I use, I make sure that the substrate that's going into it has a lot of air spaces in it. And I use both an organic mix with my cocoa husk chunks, fine bark, long fiber sphagnum, and pumice chunks, or I use straight pumice, or I use a pond pumice mixture. All of those are going to give your Hoya closer to the situations it would find in its home range. Because what those airy substrates do is create a localized humid environment. By drawing moisture up or holding moisture in the substrate itself for a while, it keeps the roots moist without them being suffocated. So what you're doing is you're creating humidity around the roots themselves. That's important. As I said, what Hoyas want are self-watering pots. That's been my experience. It's just, they're just wonderful. They've just solved so many problems for me. And typically, I overpot my Hoyas. And so I use self-watering pots and an inorganic mix, even an organic mix. Typically they tell you not to go too big on the pots, and that's great if you're using soil for other plants. But in something like this, my inorganic substrate, my pumice or my pon, even the organic substrate is not going to hold too much moisture. There's not going to be too much moisture there for the plant to use. So I would put a small plant in a pot this size because that means I don't have to repot it very often. And I can just leave it alone and let it grow. I don't have the problems with root rot from overpotting a plant with self-watering and particularly inorganic, but even organic mixes that I did when I was trying to grow plants in soil. Even organic mixes in those self-watering pots, they will wick out. The moisture will be drawn out of the substrate into the air, and it won't be too moist for the Hoya roots. Matter of fact, I find that organic substrates in self-watering pots dry out even faster than the pond does. But so I overpot when I use a self-watering pot. I'll put a small plant in here. For the first couple of days after I put it in, I'll squirt a little moisture right around where the roots are, and then I'll slowly back off on that as the root system expands and takes advantage of what's here. But I don't have problems with root rot and plants dying from it. So yeah, I'm a big fan of self-watering pots. Food. If you're using an inorganic mix, I'm getting excited now, so then you're going to have to feed your plants. And giving them a foliar spray or orchid fertilizer, weekly, as they like to say, is not going to be enough. Pon, leca, pumice have no natural nutrients in them. Even an organic mix, that like my favorite mix of cocoa husk chunks and fine bark, long fiber sphagnum, and pumice, has very, very little nutrients in it. So you're going to have to feed your plant regularly. So my self-watering pots, the reservoirs in those self-watering pots, are always filled with a nutrient solution, all the time, year-round. It's what they live on. It does make a difference. So I use the General Hydroponics Flora series. There are other series out there for hydroponic growing. I don't necessarily recommend one over the other. The GH1 is the one I'm most familiar with, but there are others. Find a hydroponic growing solution for your Hoyas, especially if they're growing in self-watering. And if they're growing in an inorganic mix, it's absolutely vital. You may notice that there's a tendency to grow algae in the reservoirs. That happens because that nutrient solution is really rich. There are ways around it, and we can talk about that later. But yeah, absolutely, you've got to feed them regularly, like regularly every watering. They're going to need it. Light. Now, even though they're understory plants, in their natural habitat, they get a fair amount of light. So they're going to want it. Now, that can mean that you have them near a good window or that you invest in grow lights. I have plants, Hoyas, growing in my bedroom that has a southwest and west-facing window, and I don't use any grow lights in there, and all of them do really well in that setup. Now, in the summertime, they get a bit of shade from the trees that are outside that window. And in the wintertime, the sun is at a lower angle, so the light is not as harsh. But they live and grow in those windows without any additional light. I have Hoyas in the plant room that grow in the fallout area of a southeast facing window. I have to, in my head, think what direction that is. So they grow in front of that window within the first foot. And they have no direct grow lights over them. So you don't need grow lights, you just need a couple good windows. You may have to pull your plant back from the window a bit, or you may have to push it further into the window a bit. You're going to need to make some adjustments and see what the plant likes. If a grow light is in your budget, then that's a great plus. It can particularly be helpful through the winter. But as I mentioned, I'm finding that my plants need less and less of that. Rather than giving them 12 hours a day, in the setup I have, I can cut that back to 8 or 10 hours a day. And they're doing fine with that. Actually, some of them look better growing with less light. The color green is a little bit more intense. Even this one that I showed you, the NS12323, I'm thinking of pulling this back because it's a little pale for my taste, and I think it would do better if it got slightly less light. So you don't need like a 400-watt bulb. I think if you had 10 watts, I think if you had 5 watts, and I know that's not all the scientific information about light units and everything else, but that's what I'm willing to deal with right now. So you can get by with lower light. They just, for the most part, need a little bit of boost to help get them through the winter. Let's see what else I've got on my notes here. Okay. Humidity. If you live in a desert, in a dry climate, or if your heating system produces dry air, a humidifier can be a big help. Now, in the plant room, I use a humidifier, but I have Hoyas growing in 3 other rooms of the house that don't have humidifiers. And while it can get a little dry, and I'm sure they would prefer that it be more humid, they just kind of slow down a little bit. They do fine, they handle it, and they get by. So, yeah, a humidifier is helpful. It can be a good thing. If you're living in a desert and your average humidity is 25%, then you will need a humidifier of some sort to allow your plants to grow, your Hoyas to grow well. But it's not a requirement. It's just a big, big plus. And the next thing is time. Hoya, for me, don't seem to react as quickly as other plants do. For example, my spathiphyllum down here, when they get a little dry, they do the big dramatic wilt, and they look like, they're beyond saving. And I give them a good drink, and the next day they look fine. Hoyas aren't like that. I joke about what I refer to as Hoya time. And Hoya time is 2 to 3 weeks. If you bring a plant home, give it 2 to 3 weeks to adjust to your home environment before you do anything with it. And if you're moving it from that into a self-watering pot or an inorganic mix, don't expect to see any new signs of growth for another 2 to 3 weeks. Number one, you're going to damage some roots when you make that transition. It's unavoidable. Just get over it. Don't beat yourself up about it. But then give it a while to settle in, to start to reestablish its root network before you expect to see anything going on. I've had Hoyas take 3 to 6 months before they put out any kind of new signs of growth. But it took them that while to get established, to find their footing, literally, and get ready to grow again. But after that initial time passes, yes. So don't expect immediate reactions from your Hoyas. Don't expect them to just spark right up or bloom right away. It can happen, but that's not the way it usually goes. And this little one here is my gorgeous Hoya caudata gold. And it's got a little bit of a bloom starting back in there. So I'm going to make sure it gets a good drink and gets settled in. But this is a gorgeous plant. It's just gorgeous. So here are my don'ts. Number one, don't make it complicated. It's a plant. They live on their own in the wild just fine. There's no one checking out on them, making sure they're watered and fed and everything else. They're plants. They do fine. You don't need 7 different kinds of substrate. You don't need every new plant tool you find. You don't need a special app on your plant, because that app on your plant, or an app on your phone, a plant app on your phone, that's what you don't need. You can have, if you have one, that's great. They can give you a lot of good advice, but don't water it because the plant, or because the app tells you to. Water it because the plant needs a drink. You still have to be involved in it. You can't just, oh, Tuesday, water. That's not going to work. Keep it simple. Look at your plant. If it's dry, give it a drink. Don't let it go too long. Keep it simple. You don't need all the stuff. All the stuff is fun, but you don't need it. Number 2, don't buy a plant you can't afford to lose. Whether it's psychologically or financially, it's a plant. Stuff happens, things go wrong. A plant can die in a day. So if you're going to be crushed emotionally, if your plant doesn't make it, don't buy that plant. If you buying that plant is going to make a major hit to your finances, don't buy that plant. You don't need it. It's more important that you pay your rent and pay your bills and put some money away in savings than buying the latest, greatest Hoya that's on the market. I don't do that. I have never spent 3 digits on a plant, ever, and I won't. And I have lost enough plants that I can say, it's a plant. I'm not going to be crushed. Might be a little bummed, but it's like, yeah, well, I wish that had made it. But if you can't afford to lose the plant, financially or emotionally, do not buy it. When you're starting out, it's really easy to fall into the Hoya rabbit hole, and we all joke about it. But my don't is, don't buy anything just because it's labeled Hoya. It's easy. It's fun. Oh, there's another Hoya. I want that one too. I need to have that one. I need to have that one. I need to have that one. There are over 500 species of Hoya. You're not going to collect them all, so don't even try. Collect deliberately. Make sure you really want that plant, that it's adding something to your collection. Don't just buy every Lacanosa because you're going to get every Lacanosa because they're coming out with new Lacanosas every week. You're never going to catch up. And that one's really hot this week, and oh boy, everybody's talking about it on Instagram. But you know something? Take a look at it. I mean, yeah, you want your picture of your plant on Instagram and everybody going, ooh, ooh, ooh. But look at it. Think about it. Do you really want that? Because at a certain point in my collection, I ended up with a lot of plants I bought, a lot of Hoyas I bought, just because they were Hoyas, and that I didn't really want them. They didn't bring me, I had them, but they didn't bring me any joy. So don't just buy Hoyas because they're Hoyas. Buy Hoyas that you want. When you're figuring out whether or not to order that Hoya, don't forget to include shipping. Because it's really great to look at something and say, oh, that's only $15. And forget that you're going to get charged $15 for shipping. And now that's a $30 plant. And, maybe. And that might be a debate point for you, a $30 plant. But if it's a $50 Hoya and they're charging you $15 shipping, now that's a $65 Hoya. And maybe, just maybe, you'd rather buy food this week. So never forget to include the shipping when you're talking yourself into this. Now, the other thing is, never order plants when you've had a couple of tasty beverages. I speak from experience on this one. Yeah, don't do it. Be of clear mind when you order plants, because it's real easy to click that button a couple times. Another don't mist your plants. M-I-S-T, not as M-I-S-S-E-D when they're gone. Don't mist your plants. Misting your plants is more benefit to you than it is to the plants. When you create a localized, humid environment that lasts for maybe 3-4 seconds. All those little water bits, all the little bits of mist are going to settle down, and the air is going to be just as dry as it was before. So, if it brings you joy to mist your plants, that's fine, but don't believe for a second that you're really doing them any benefit. That humidity is not going to last at all. Checking the roots. Don't keep checking the roots. I see people say, well, I checked the roots again this week. Don't do that. Leave those roots alone. If you've got a clear pot and you can look and see roots, that's fine. Don't go digging and rooting around in there, pun intended, to see how they're doing. Just leave them alone. Unless you suspect something is seriously, seriously wrong, just leave them alone. If you suspect there might be root mealies or some other kind of root infestation, then take the plant and flush it with hydrogen peroxide. That's what I do. I don't go rooting around in there, because every time you open that up and go rooting around, you do more damage. So just leave it alone. I haven't had any difficulty taking that approach. It seems to work fine. Leave the roots alone. If you keep digging at them, that's not going to work well. Don't do wet and dry cycles. A lot of the articles I read at first said Hoyas like to dry out completely. Don't water them until the top 1 or 2 inches of the soil is completely dry, and then give them a thorough soaking. Well, that's not how it is in their neighborhood. In some places where the Hoyas grow, they get rain every single day, and the average humidity through the course of the year can be 80%. They don't do wet and dry cycles. Even the dry season in some of these places gets more rain than I ever do in the course of a year. So keep that kind of stuff in mind. Don't let them dry out. And well, you're not going to be planting them in soil anyway. We've already talked about that. Don't let them dry out and then overwater them. That's what contributes to root rot, when the roots get really, really dry and then flushed with water. When they get super dry and dry up and die, and then you flush them with water, then they rot. If you keep them at a steady and even humid range, they're going to do fine. They're going to do much better for you. And my last don't is, don't chop and prop everything. Unless you're going to go into the business, you don't need 14 cuttings of a lacunosa. you might need one as a backup. But unless you have 13 other friends who've told you they want cuttings, yeah, when I first started, I would chop and prop everything. Oh yeah, I'll cut that back and I'll start it and start. And they all started and they all grew and no one wanted them. And so I had all these little tiny baby plants that I did online retail. I had my own online businesses for 20 years. I don't want to do that anymore. I'm retired. So I did not want to start shipping plants all over the place. It's not what I want to do in this point in my life. So unless you're prepared to start shipping plants and selling them, and everybody's doing that now, the competition's really heavy, then don't chop and prop everything. Maybe take one for insurance purposes. But if it's going fine, I mean, I at one point had like 40 different cuttings all rooting and didn't know what to do with them. And they ended up being composted because no one wanted them. So yeah. And don't send me emails saying, oh, I would have taken them. I'm not interested in shipping them. So yeah. So, don't go chop and prop crazy. You'll make your life miserable. That's my don'ts. And now the question for the comments. And it's time for y'all to chime in. What's your one piece of advice for Hoya newbies? What's the one thing you wish someone had told you when you first started? And it can be about Hoya addiction issues or about substrate issues or falling down the rabbit hole issues or whatever. What's the one piece of advice you wish someone had told you when you first started? And that's going to make for good reading. And as always, I want to thank you for choosing to spend a little bit of your time with me this week and listening to me rant. Please remember to click that thumbs up like button, the subscribe button, the notification bell. And if you're on a mobile device, when you finished watching and adding your comments, please click on that hype button. All of those things help convince YouTube that my channel is worth recommending to other people, and it's your way of helping the channel to grow. A lot of the products that you've seen me use are available in my Amazon storefront. There's a link in the description, or you can scan this QR code with the camera app on your phone to visit that storefront. I receive a small commission on the sales. It doesn't increase your price whatsoever, and it's a great way of supporting the channel by buying things that you normally would buy anyway. I have a relationship with the Sansi Corporation, and if you're in the market for grow lights, there's a link to that site in the description, or you can scan this QR code to visit the site. I receive a small commission on the sales from the site, particularly if you use this discount code, Planted in RI, at checkout. I've been really happy with my Sansi grow lights. I'm going to be showing you a new one that I just received recently in the next week or two, and I think they'll add a lot to your growing experience. Yes, 2 thumbs up for Sansi grow lights. If you'd like to support the channel directly, there's a link in the description to my Buy Me a Coffee page, or you can scan this QR code with the camera app on your phone. Or if you'd like to work through YouTube, you can click on the thanks button down here, and YouTube handles everything to do with the thanks button. As usual, I'm going to put links to a couple more videos over here on the side, and please enjoy the rest of your week's end.